You're listening to the G&D Show with Govinda and Dan of City of Bristol College. If you've got any comments or questions for us to read out on the show, then email us at thegdshowbristol@gmail.com. Again, that's thegdshowbristol@gmail.com. Let's get on with the show.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the G&D Show. My name is Dan.
My name's Gigi.
And here we are for part 2 of last week's episode on masculinity. I wanted to actually, before we get into this, say a couple of things about last week's episode that I haven't even spoken to Gigi about. So Gigi, you don't even know what I'm going to say here about this. For one, I felt a bit awkward about talking about the idea of men not being governed by their bodies, because it's this suggestion that women are governed completely by their bodies and so on. But I wanted to make it clear that I'm also aware that the reason that women unfortunately are governed so much by what they have to wear and what they do is because of the patriarchy and the way that unfortunately society has sexualized women unnecessarily. And I'm very much aware of that. It was just that at the time, that did not get said. So I actually wanted to make that part clear, that I'm fully conscious that it's not like, women are born and then suddenly it's like, oh, cover up, cover up, cover up. It's more a case of we've set on these tones where basically, things are overtly, unfortunately, sexualized to a place where women are unfortunately governed by a narrative. So I just wanted to make that absolutely clear there. Also, we touched on it at the end, but actually in this conversation here, Gigi and I had a chat and we wanted to discuss the way that masculinity looks in a healthy pattern. And for me to set that off, what I wanted to do was say, there was a binary message that was put into last week's episode, I felt. There wasn't enough of an idea of spectrum. And again, for someone who doesn't believe that there's anything about human beings that is binary, I just find that to be so reductive and so restricting of human existence. I thought it was disrespectful of me not to bring that spectrum into it. So I hope today I do introduce more than that, and Gigi as well. But I think I want to set the tone by saying that masculinity is not something that is only attributed to men. It is characteristics that we'll explore today that men might perpetuate, but women can also perpetuate. This is not something that is exclusive to men. We are talking about interchangeably men and masculinity, but masculinity in and of itself is not something that just men can pick up. This is something that any person of any gender identity can pick up and collect and perpetuate at any point. And so I think looking into, and of course by extension that means that toxic masculinity can also be picked up by anyone and perpetuated by anyone. So I wanted to pick that up because I didn't want this episode or this kind of short series to be just a case of, oh, this is just for men. You know, if you're non-binary, if you're a woman, don't listen to this, right? That's not what I wanted to say. You know,
And
just,
even if you don't identify with the gender as well, right, Dan? Like there's going to be
yeah, I was
nuggets
gonna
of
say,
gold
yeah.
in this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to say that before we move forward, because I guess maybe for me personally, that last episode wasn't as inclusive as I'd wanted it to be. When I kind of listened to it back, and I was like, do you know what? There's so many people we haven't included in this conversation that we could. So yeah, I want to set that tone moving forward for sure.
It's a good
So
point.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gigi. Thank you very much. So Gigi and I both have a quote, phrase of the day that we're going to touch on, and Gigi's going to go first. So you give us your quote, mate, and actually tell us what you get from this. Go for it, man.
Absolutely. Again, this is one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite writers and psychologists. Actually, been very helpful to me. So actually, I have some personal sentiment in there. That's going to be disclosed straight away. So when men feel the wound that cannot heal, they either bury themselves in woman's arms and ask for her healing. When she cannot provide, they hide themselves in macho pride and enforced loneliness. So anyone who's listening to this, I'm just going to let that sink in for a little bit as well, Dan, give you a bit of time to think while I think too.
Oh man,
So
I'm processed.
processed to the max.
Honestly, this
So
speaks to so much.
what I get from this is, again, my personal experiences. This is something that's been on my mind a lot, and in my thoughts a lot. I give this a lot of attention, only because I think that from a psychological perspective, and listeners, again, this can be for anyone. This can be for women as well. This can be for anyone who doesn't assign themselves a gender as well. This is very important. I think it's suffice to say and healthy to say that we all go through a bit of an identity crisis. It can be earlier, can be later on in life. I don't think there is a definitive time that it can happen, and I don't want you to pay any attention to that. But what I must say is that I think it's our prerogative to shape a very psychologically healthy and independent identity away from our parents, our upbringing, our childhood, and the opposite sex, or boyfriend or girlfriend. I will put in that, for whoever's listening to this. And I say that with great importance because, yes, this quote speaks personally to me in the sense that away from my work, Dan knows this as well. I work in attachment theory and relationships. That's my thing. That's what brings me juice. That's what gets me excited. And this is a huge overlap in that, because part of the solution around that to overcoming those issues is not so much, well, realizing that you're not your experiences anymore, but also going down that road of discovering yourself. And this is what, in a psychological perspective, individuation is finding yourself away from all these things. And I think for a lot of men, and me included, I feel ashamed saying this, but I have to say this because otherwise I'd feel like a complete farce. I have in the past done this. I have looked at my relationships and my girlfriends to fix me, to heal me, for lack of a better word, right? And I knew I'm so glad you can accept that and bring it up. But for me, it's always been an issue. It's always been an issue because it felt wrong. I knew it was wrong. And I was like, it's not just a sense of self-responsibility. It's almost like I've lost myself now by you trying to discover me, right?
Yeah.
And then how much of me is still individual? How much of me is able to relate in a healthy, functioning way? And then, of course, the projections come on and the need to, self-aggrandize our macho pride. We've all done that as well. As cringy as it is, you see it time and time again.
Yeah.
So, Dan, what do you think about this quote? What resonates with you? What comes to mind?
There's a martyr, because there's like it's a weird collective cause of masculinity, and you can see this in that quote, actually, in the behavior that's described in that quote, where if a man is hurt, yes, they will turn to women to kind of more often turn to women. And I remember this. Who was it? Who was it who said it? Someone was talking about how, actually, no, it's women in generally. When I watch women on social media talking, certainly feminists and so on, it was when they speak on the fact that a partner, a girlfriend, can often fall into a trap, fall victim to men's expectation that women should be, their partner's girlfriend should be, suddenly their best friend, their girlfriend, their mother, their therapist, their life coach, everything. Yeah. Please heal me. Please affirm me. Right? And it turns to the woman to do all that. That's the first thing that I hear when you say the quote, because I'm like, Absolutely. That is so incredibly accurate. Because like you said, and I've done this myself, but also I see this in the reflection of so many relationships, right? Where guys think that a woman will fix them and lean all of their problems onto them, or expect a woman just to know. And that unfortunately also speaks to the ridiculousness of gender roles and gender expectations and
Absolutely.
so on and forth. Because I know that, of course, on the other side of that, there'll be femininity thinking, yes, I can fix this. All I need to do is care. All I have to do is care about this thing, right? Let me take care of the emotional part because I can handle all of that. Meanwhile, masculinity on the other end of the spectrum is just going dump, 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 dump. Take it. Emotional labor. Take it. So that's how I recognize it. It's not I can't fix myself, because if I start to do that, that's going to get too emotional, and that's what femininity is all about. So I'm going to hand that task to femininity to do that, right?
Absolutely.
But if we're not recognizing that we can play around with both of those dynamics, or both of those things, and be both at the same time, then that's where we fall short. But then that's also links to that isolation, because what can happen is if we walk around with our problems constantly, like, oh, it's so hard being me or anything like that, and we don't find that people are willing to take on the caring for us to the degree that we need them to or want them to, right? Then we will feel isolated and we'll go into a shell of no one cares about me and no one da 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 and all this stuff. And I, which brings me to a place when I realized this was something that really switched things around for me. When I was listening, I really should remember who these people are. Someone said this, and I was like, "Oh my Lord!" Like, yeah, that's so true. And it was a building of realizing no one cares about you the way you care about yourself. No one cares about you to the extent that you think they should or expect them to care about you. And it was this building of realizing to the point where someone just said, I wish I could remember where it was. Someone just said it out loud. It's like, no one is coming to save you.
Nope.
No one is coming to save you.
Nope.
You're on your own. Yes, you might have a mum or a dad or a guardian or a best friend or a girlfriend or boyfriend or a partner or something. But no one's here to save you. No one can do that. You're on your own with that. You do that. Even though it might not be your fault, it is absolutely your problem to fix. It's not anyone else's. You've got to do it. But I think the problem again with masculinity as it's adopted is that it thinks that it sees itself as a weird fixer, but not a fixer of these things. These things belong to femininity to sort out. So you go and sort that out. And this is done in so many different facets. You can see it done in terms of, raising children, cleaning around, doing chores around the house, being personally accountable, being self-aware, being emotionally intelligent. Ironically, all of the things that fundamentally can make us human, if you like, an adult and responsible. Masculinity just goes, nah, I'm gonna leave that to femininity. I'm just gonna do me and focus on what I need to do. And so I hear a lot of what you're saying there in that because of course we need support. We need care to grow and so on. Not loads, but enough. We also need to give ourselves some care. I think the isolation comes from the fact that if we don't get care, the care we expect, which is overinflated, we go into a victim mindset of no one cares about me. I'm just going to isolate myself and wait for someone to come and save me, even though no one is. And I think honestly that leads to that I feel might also play into the role that feeds into the unfortunate like epidemic of male suicide.
Yeah.
And I'm not absolutely about to say that men do it because do it to themselves so much. But I think it's just that they don't understand. There's not the understanding of this dynamic. There's not the understanding of this place of you've got to speak on it, man. You've got to learn to help yourself. You've got to learn to ask for help. You've got to learn to talk about these things. You've got to. You can't be leaving this. You can't fix all your own problems, and you cannot leave it to your partner of any identity to fix this. That's not fair on them. You've got to get the work done and find the right help. It's got to be done. So yeah,
I definitely agree with you on that one. Absolutely. And I think part of that, actually stepping away from that, is identifying that you are an adult now and you don't have the quote unquote proverbial umbilical cord still stuck to mum or dad, and that you are able to create an identity away from that. I think a lot of men and women struggle with that, and this is a universal thing. And actually, one more thing I was going to say with that is, in listening to what you were saying, this also has a lot to do with how we have our needs expressed. I think a lot of men are like, oh, I can't ask for this in a relationship. You can in a healthy way, 100%. I don't want people to think, oh, this journey is all about maturing so much that you're not able to express that. That's not what we're saying. We'll be creating another issue there, right? So I think me and you, know that we can actively ask for help when we need, and also our needs as well in a healthy way. That's what comes with maturity, and also that's what comes with vulnerability. Is not the worried about what happens as a result of you asking something, providing you do it in a respectful way.
You're listening to the G&D show. If anything we've said on this show in any episode, including this one, really resonates with you in any way, then please reach out to us for one-to-one conversations, just to drop us a bit of information you might have, or of course you can join us in our group sessions. Contact us at thegdshowbristol@gmail.com. That's thegdshowbristol@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with us for any of your coaching, personal development, or progress needs. Let's get back to the show. Okay, so we've done the phrase of the day. I did have a quote as well, but we ran out of time. So what I'm going to do, and what we're going to do here, is I'm going to read off my quote, and then Gigi, we're just going to dive into it, right?
Yeah, we are indeed.
Yeah, we're just going to get it done. Okay, then. So my quote's from Camille Paglia, and when I saw this, it really spoke to me because it actually speaks to basically what I was talking about last week. So this kind of connects. The quote is, "A woman simply is, but a man must become. Masculinity is risky and elusive. It is achieved by a revolt from woman, and it's confirmed only by other men. Manhood coerced into sensitivity is no manhood at all." I really love that one. I really, really did love that one. So this week, what we want to look at is actually positive demonstration, positive actions of masculinity that maybe we could all understand better and we could all move into if we wanted to, if we could identify it that way and really start to see as a better way of us living, not just for ourselves, but literally for the people around us as well. So actually, Gigi, did you have anything that you wanted to read off or go from there that you wanted to take this conversation forward with?
Not in particular. I think what I've allowed myself to do with you is just to keep it a little bit open in terms of what comes up. I want this to be a natural flow in terms of a conversation around masculinity, only because, retrospectively speaking, most of our conversations are about this. So yeah, but I particularly want to put onus and focus on not just your quote, because your quote alludes to that quite beautifully. Is to actually look at, is there this role of understanding that it is your own journey in terms of exploring what masculinity is. And the caveat in this podcast or anything we discuss around masculinity is that we are not here to tell you what masculinity is. Okay? That is something you must discover on your own, as you already know. If you listen to the previous podcast on masculinity, if you haven't, I recommend you do listen to that.
Yeah,
because it's very important. It gives you a bit of a background in terms of why we're talking about certain things on part 2.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, then. So, I mean, I'm gonna take this from a place of understanding where masculinity fails massively, and obviously I'll go back to some of the things I said last week, and I'll look at, for example, the idea of power, control, and so on and so on. And I'll look for this idea of the being the center of things, because I know that there's this element of masculinity that's also tied to other social ideologies that pit people above each other in like a hierarchy, and it gets a little bit messy. So one of the things that I think would be incredible to speak on is how masculinity in its better form actually works as a collaborative effort. And I'm going to start with this video that I watched, wherein, and I'm gonna have to share it with people so that so that I can tell the story. I was watching a video of a guy talk about the man's perspective on pregnancy, right? How a man experiences a woman being pregnant, when obviously she is his partner and they're in love and and it was him telling the story right the way from, kind of the first sign of the bump all the way to maybe the month or two after the birth of the child. I was watching this 26-minute video, and there was actually something about this guy that I found really masculine. I really enjoyed it, and it was very healthy. And it was the way that he held himself so incredibly well, talking very comfortably about otherwise sensitive subjects and otherwise almost taboo subjects for men, but doing it with charisma, with a bit of playfulness, with a bit of fun, and being incredibly informative all at the same time. His comfort levels talking about it were incredible. And while I was watching this video, I wasn't thinking about masculinity or men, but something tweaked in me when I was watching it, going, this guy's really representing masculinity right now. And it's funny because while he is the center of attention, posting this YouTube video and talking about it and going, these are all the things that I wish. In fact, the title of the video was all the things I wish people told me about, pregnancy. He's aware that by being the center of attention, he's producing information in such a way that is accessible to so many people, that is fun for everyone to watch, that is there. So he's acknowledging that at that moment he might be at the center of attention, but he's also putting the information as the center. He's putting the information as the center, not himself. He's putting the feelings he had at the center. He's bringing everything that people actually come to him for as like the central bonfire of this collective space that we're all in watching this video. And that's what I really enjoyed. He didn't make himself out to be an expert. He didn't make himself out to be a genius. He didn't make himself out to be a guru or a master. He literally was like, this is my experience and I'd like to share it with you guys. And it felt very, very collaborative. I felt like part of a community that he had just kind of just happened to be speaking in. And that spoke to me in a level of masculinity that I really enjoyed, because it spoke to this element of sharing, of collaboration, of connection, of empowerment through group, right? The idea that a man needs to do it all on their own, which I think comes from this concept of men being strong, stiff upper lip, which I've already talked about, and the whole, and actually partially the self-made narrative, which I really, really cannot stand. I really cannot stand the self-made narrative. I won't go into it, but all I'll say is there is not for everyone listening, not a single human being in the history of human existence has made it with air quotes, made it on their own. Self-made is a fallacy because someone has helped them get every opportunity they had. Someone, no one is self-made. So put that down. It is a dream. It is a fallacy. It is a false narrative. Stop it. But that's what I think masculinity picks up on that a lot more, because it's about, again, centering a single person, being at the focal point, And so I love that. And I speak to that because it was an example of me being inspired in masculinity to be like, that's dope. That's dope. You've brought a video, it's got a lot of views, you're getting a lot of attention, but still you recognize that they're not coming for you, but they are coming for the information that you are bringing.
Yeah. Brilliant.
That's brilliant. So I think everyone wants to be able to look at that and identify with that in masculinity in a healthy manner. Because when you see different men who are the center of attention for whatever reason, you want to look at whose attention they have. For example, Donald Trump, he had a lot of people's attention, and you look at positive attention, who wanted to give him attention, who wanted to support him, what kind of people were they like, and why was he getting that attention, right? And actually, they made Donald Trump about Donald Trump. They didn't make Donald Trump about his values or what information he had to bring or what he was sharing, what collaborative effort. It was about him, right? So you want to look at are people coming to me because of who I am, because of me? Do I want to be the center of attention because of me, or do I want to be the center of attention because of what I bring and what I provide for other people? And I don't mean provide obviously in a financial means.
Interesting.
What do I bring to the room? And I think that's something that masculinity can really learn from and grow from in that regard. Bring something, and if you don't have anything to bring, create something to bring. Produce something to bring, and it's not a matter of actually building. Don't build a sandcastle, for Christ's sake. Build character, right? Build a sense of identity. Build a sense of personal growth. Build a human being that you want to be, that other people will be drawn to, right? That's what I mean. I'm not talking about building a house or building a car or fixing something. That's not what I'm talking about. No. But that's what I want to speak on with that. What have you got? What have you got there, Gigi?
What with what you've been saying, or?
It's in general, man. You have to respond to me. I've just spoken. Anyone
No,
can,
it's
you have
it's
to
it's
respond to me at all.
it's fantastic. You're saying that. I particularly like the fact that you said that, don't look at the man himself, but look at, what kind of things he's attracting. What kind of, like you said with Trump, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be going off slightly off track, but it's
Oh no.
still a lot to do with masculinity, and I mean a lot. Okay, so my own exploration, and I'm not unique. There's tons of men out there.
Mm.
I want to particularly talk about this word vulnerability.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Sure. Go on.
I'll tell you why I want to talk about that, because it's often, obviously, I'm a coach. I do relationship coaching away from my job here.
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerability comes up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to just clearly define what vulnerability is within the context of talking about masculinity in general too.
Yeah.
And if you're female listening to this again is applicable to you as well. It goes beyond just genders. And the reason why I want to touch upon this is because for so long we have been told to be stoic in our approach. And when I mean we, I'm overgeneralizing here and saying that we, us men, right? Ignore emotions, suppress your emotions, don't talk about your emotions, strong and silent type. That's what I've been taught a lot. This is something that I grew up listening to constantly, so there was a time, and I'm refrained from using expletives here, this is how passionate I get about it.
Yeah. Go for it, man.
There was a time where I looked at it and I called BS on it, basically. And I said, okay, this is not right. And so what I want to particularly look at is with vulnerability itself, I want to clearly say to people that vulnerability isn't about being soft or perceived as being weak. What vulnerability actually is, vulnerability is the ability to tell the truth transparently and honestly, without worrying about what's going to be said about it or how it's going to be judged. So when we start to put a lot of weight about how someone's going to respond about me being sensitive or me expressing myself in a sensitive way, we lose all power to even communicate that thing. And so that's what vulnerability is. Vulnerability is telling the truth. It's being emotionally available. It's about being okay about emotional intelligence. So whether that comes up in a relationship, whether that comes up at work, whether that comes in with your colleagues, there is great power in being vulnerable, as in saying, hey, I've got an issue with this. Can we talk about this? This is how I feel, or this is what I think. Yeah? Because we've got to be very mindful here. A lot of men think they're thinking, but actually it's feelings. Yeah?
Yeah, you're right.
Come on. Let's not beat about the bush here.
You know what, mate? You've literally just nailed it for me. That's exactly it. When all these people talking about how dudes are logical and rational thinkers.
Yeah.
Oh no. I've always been like, no, you're not.
Oh no.
Like, okay, maybe you are in certain circumstances, but when you actually speak, a lot of what you're saying is incredibly emotionally driven. So don't give me logic and rational. Don't give me that.
Absolutely.
Please.
Just tell me how it is.
Because the tone of your voice is placid doesn't mean you're being rational, my guy. You still have words that you use and a whole agenda behind it. So please don't give me that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So no, I love that. And by virtue of sharing this experience, I've kind of touched upon, the practical nature, because, without overgeneralizing here, because I don't like that.
Yeah.
Men like practical things. I get that. So that's going to be very, very important. In us, look, I'm not saying that me and Dan are like going to be the pioneers of changing men's actions and behaviors. We're not actually interested in that. But what we actually interested
you might not be. You don't know my goal.
Oh my god. Okay. Secretly, Dan is interested in that.
Secretly, I ain't told nobody about
it. What I would say is what we're definitely interested in is opening up a dialogue for us to create a platform where men can talk about that. It doesn't matter what age you are, because time and time again, God, Dan, if I had £1 for every time a man said to me, "What's vulnerability?" Yeah. Or how do I talk to my girlfriend in an emotionally healthy way? Yeah. God, I think I'd be a millionaire. I really would. I think I'd have a mansion in Lake Como right now. And that's the thing. And I took a step back and I was like, yes, 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 yes. It's so important that we talk about vulnerability and we rephrase and re-anchor what we feel about vulnerability. It's not weakness. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, the strength in a guy saying to me, look, dude, me and you had this conversation. Something upset me in this conversation. Can we maturely talk about this so I can understand how that happened? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That is just amazing. And that for me is just a hallmark of a guy who's not just mature but is okay with showing that side of him, because he's not afraid of being perceived in a certain way by his own or even the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's almost like there's no charge behind it. It's like, I'm going to be honest for the sake of being honest, not to manipulate you, not to make you feel a way, not for you to do something for me. It's just unconditional. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm able to express myself honestly and openly, and I have no shame around that. And that's another thing. Shame is another issue, by the way, as well. You know,
Mm.
that it's embedded in the male psyche that, oh, you're soft, or, and I hate using these words. It's been said to me as well. Oh, you're very feminine. You know,
Mm.
no. I think it's okay to know that you have that. And in fact, I don't think there's any guy that I've met who was 100% masculine. Even guys have feminine traits. They would not want to tell you that,
No,
but they have
they
it.
wouldn't dare. They wouldn't even accept it if you told
But I
them.
but I confidently, and Dan confidently, will tell you that
Yeah,
is the case.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's again. It comes back from last week when I was talking about how we the characteristics of masculinity have been curated for war in terms of
Mm.
what we see in many forms of modern masculinity at the moment. But that hand me down there, like you said, it's hardwired. You know, it is conditioned in young men. I think if you're a young man right now and you're listening to this by chance and you kind of hear that don't cry, stiff upper lip, man up narrative or rhetoric, anything like that, then I think it's fair to say, yeah, you weren't born this way. You've been told that there's a punishment if you fall out of line with these parameters of a type of masculinity.
Mm.
But what I've been thinking is that another one of the most healthiest masculine things, in terms of what I mentioned earlier about, what do you bring? What can you produce? Is and it's ironic because of what I've seen go on in the internet space over the last couple of years. Is funny enough, masculinity can bring safe spaces.
Yep.
You,
100%.
no one. In fact, and I tell you what, I'll put it this way. I lived in Birmingham. I had a guy come around to fix my window, right?
Mm.
And he was called in by my landlord. We were talking, how because he had it was a long job. It was like a 2-day job, and it wasn't a big place. So basically, he was working in my living room. I was in my living room, playing my video games and stuff. He asked me, "What do you do?" I told him at the time I was a life coach, and he was like, "Oh, that's weird." I mean, he even and what was great was he actually said, I want to ask you something, but it feels rude. Can I ask you something that feels a bit rude? I said, yeah, absolutely. And that could be step one of like, you want to cross a boundary
Mm.
and you're checking with me. And the only reason I said yes so confidently was because he checked. I was like, yo, this guy actually checked a boundary with me. Damn. Because he could have just asked. I
Correct.
would have been mad uncomfortable. Like, why are you asking me personal questions in my house? Fix the window, my guy. So so yeah, he asked it, and I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely, go for it. And I was ready to give whatever answer he wanted. I was ready to be honest with him as well because he checked. And so and he said, oh, but I of what I've seen of life coaches, I always expect them to be a bit more. And he started kind of was trying to find the word, and I said, "What, had more money than this?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, and I explained to him the whole thing about life coaching's a skill. It's not like you earn loads of money and then become one. You can become one at 16 years old if you want to. The skill is readily available for anyone to pick up at any time, and I happen to pick my time. And it's nothing to do with my ability to earn money. Actually, it's nothing to do with my ability to live my own life. It is a skill that I have that allows me to help other people with their life. It's got no reflection on how I live mine whatsoever. And he was like, oh, okay. And we got into a conversation then. I didn't coach him, but we got into a conversation where he then started to share with me his personal stuff. And he did end up in tears at one point because he was talking about something that really was deeply difficult for him to manage. Now,
Mm.
I did not ask for him to do that. I did not encourage him or say anything that was like trying to push him into that. I simply set a tone of the conversation that allowed him to have an emotional release, talking about something that he'd clearly been holding in for some time.
Mm.
That's all I did. And I say that not to kind of go, oh, look at me, look at what I did. But no, to actually say that actually felt really, really great. I felt like I gained a friend because when he came back to speak to me again, the way that he spoke to me almost felt like on a friend's level. He felt a lot more comfortable joking with me and so on. And there was a relationship built there. All I did was let him talk. All I did was hold space. It felt incredibly empowering for me to do that because I wasn't in charge of anything. All I was doing was letting this other human being simply sit in a moment of authentic emotion and let it be. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to say anything. Again, I think the problem again with masculinity is it feels like it needs to fix. So when it sees a problem, it's like, let me fix this. I need to bring a solution forward. No, you don't. You've already brought a solution. The solution was, can someone please give me a space where I can just let this out? Can I just vent? And yeah, so I think that's actually an incredibly masculine thing that you can do. And I only say that because of how I felt doing that at that time. Is create space. Create a space where if you've got a friend who's in a difficult place, if you've got your partner is in a difficult place, your girlfriend, right? She probably might have to hear you talk about some stuff. Let her talk about some stuff and don't listen to build a solution. You're not there to pick up their problems. They just need to be able to vent. Sometimes venting is incredibly cathartic. Let it out. So create space. And I think that speaks to it as well. Because actually, and I think this is more important for other guys, because I'm sure that a lot of guys at the moment have a lot of stuff on their shoulders they just want to let out. It's not for them. Some of it will be for them to fix it. Some of it will be for them just to have spoken on it, just to have said it, just to get it out of their head, off their chest. And that can be liberating because the more that it plays on you, I can't describe the sensation, but I just imagine it as like a, what do I picture it as? Actually, this is how I described it when I spoke to my therapist about it. It's like you have a glass of water and somehow at the bottom is oil, right? It's this dirty, murky oil that that doesn't mix with the water. Oil and water don't mix, but it sits there and you know it's there. So you can kind of drink the water and know that you're never going to sip that oil, but it bothers you every time you drink the water because the oil's there. And that's life, right? What you want to do is be able to get that oil out the glass. You don't want to bring a solution to get rid of the oil inside the glass. You just want to pour the oil out the glass. That's it. And you can enjoy the water. It's fine. And I think that's the way that I describe it, is just giving that safe space for people to be able to, men specifically, guys specifically, to be able to get that stuff off their chest. Not for a solution, just for a vent. And certainly not, because I think this is the other challenge, is that men do have a lot on their mind. They do have a lot on their shoulders and in their heads. But unfortunately, that also becomes weaponized. And I know because you spoke about this before, we spoke about this earlier today, weaponized towards an anti-feminist stance.
Yep.
So a man's mental health or a man's inability to share their feelings can literally be twisted into a matter of anti-feminism, anti-woman, which leads into all sorts of other bigotries, homophobia, anti-LGBT, all sorts of other bigotries, and basically pushes you towards a kind of male extremism, which is incredibly unhealthy, because that means that nothing has actually been resolved other than you found a place to direct all of that pain at. And it's people who you should be caring about, loving, looking after, being friends with, having good relationships with, having a life with. You're then putting it all on them. So yeah, I think holding space is a massively powerful thing that masculinity can really start to learn and do and really own very, very well. You're listening to the G&D show. If anything we've said resonates with you in any way, or you feel like you just want to make some comments or have some questions about what we said today, please reach out to us at thegdshowbristol@gmail.com. You can reach out for one-to-one conversations with myself or Gigi. You can book us in for group sessions if you so wish. Or, of course, again, you can just send us some comments or questions you'd like us to speak on. The email again is thegdshowbristol@gmail.com. Let's get back to the show.
Right, ladies and gents, let's wrap this podcast up. The second segment of what it is to be a man in today's society. If you're just listening at this point, I recommend that you listen to part one at the beginning of this podcast. Me and Dan have covered a lot in both podcasts, especially at the beginning of this one. So some take-home points, some things, some tidbits we can take away, some golden nuggets, let's say. It's suffice to say that yes, we have spoken about male roles or gender roles, especially masculinity. But it's also suffice to say and okay to say that actually what we are really hinting towards is this development, this journey of maturation, and not veering off into any extremes. For example, we spoke about, what does one do where they cannot express themselves emotionally and the stigma attached to that. And we have explained that in a healthy way, you can, and you absolutely can. You don't need permission for it. Can turn up and talk about your emotions in a healthy way without any ramifications. And so from personal anecdotes and stuff we've spoken about, both me and Dan, we sincerely hope that you listen to this podcast and find some sort of value in it, and find something helpful that you can find that's both applicable and nourishing for your woes as well, if that is the issue. Dan, is there anything you want to add to this as we part ways and end this lovely podcast?
Yeah, so I think I want to end with a tone and something that I think I'd want everyone to take away from this is it is absolutely about teamwork and collaboration and our ability to do that. I think what I'd like everyone to take away from this point, wherever you're at in your journey of your own, personal manhood or masculinity, of whatever identity you are, I think I just want to be able to reinforce and set that tone that we dismantle the ideas of the archetype of man and this nonsense around hierarchy and power and governance and like I'm trying to think of the other words of total rock solidness and things like that. Let's start being strong in our ability to manage ourselves. Let's start being strong in our ability to be examples of human resolve for ourselves and for the people around us. Let's start showing everyone in our space that we are comfortable, safe human beings to be around. We are not there to dictate. We are not there to teach false ideologies or teach rigid ideologies or restricted ideas around what we're supposed to be. We are there to support people. And I'm saying we, I do mean those of a masculine persuasion. We are here to allow people their freedoms and be strong enough to sit in the presence of people of difference and let them live into that. Let them be that. Let them express that. Let us set example by allowing others, because when we allow others, they also allow others. When we restrict others, they restrict others. So let's start practicing allowing. Let's allow ourselves first to just be, and by extension then allow others. And hopefully this wave of new collaborative thinking, collective thinking, connectedness and group empowerment can be born not just out of masculinity, but actually combine with the incredible work that feminism has done over the years. I know it's got a bad rap in some corners, and I know that some people don't think highly of it. I still hold strongly to the original purpose and value of feminism, which was the equality of the sexes. And I still hold strongly to that. I know it's been commodified and turned into something it's not, but I still hold to that. And I want one day to masculinity join in that effort of equality of the sexes. Yes, we might have our differences, but that doesn't mean we can't work together to create some incredibly powerful stuff. And I think that's it. I also, again, see, I've done it again, also want to point to intersex people who, of course, play a huge role in this as well, by identifying purely through existing alone that, that again, like I said at the very beginning, binary does not exist in any form of human existence. So I always still want to make sure that I point a wink and a nod in that direction as well. So yeah, as we take forward, let's be more collaborative. Let's look after ourselves first in an appropriate manner. We'll know when we're healthy. We may not know what healthy looks like, but we'll know when we're healthy, and we'll know that by the way the world responds to us and who's responding to us in kind. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this episode, and hopefully the last episode as well. If you haven't listened to that, you can go over and listen to that. But it's a goodbye from myself.
And it's goodbye from Gigi.
Have a fantastic week, everyone, and we'll see you in another episode of The GD Show. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The G&D Show. Thank you very much. If you've got any comments or questions, or if you're a student at City of Bristol College and you want some one-to-one conversations with myself or Govinda, then please do email us at thegdshowbristol@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in another episode.